There's a strange pressure lately, an invisible kind of attention that doesn't speak but lingers, waiting. It's like something's pressing in from unseen places, trying to catch a glimpse of what can't be touched. There's a quiet agreement among certain people that something about your awareness defies explanation. They're not saying it, but they're probing, testing, circling your reactions like observers in an unspoken experiment. Not out of malice, but out of fascination. The ordinary frameworks they rely on no longer apply when you're around, and so they begin playing games in silence, dropping energetic breadcrumbs, offering emotional bait, and monitoring how you respond without a single word spoken. What they call coincidence is a strategy, and every time they try it, you see right through it, effortlessly. What was supposed to be private thought becomes revealed presence in your space, and that terrifies them more than they'll admit. It's not just that the sensitivity is sharp, it's that it keeps turning their assumptions upside down. The way you pick up shifts in tone before a sentence even leaves someone's lips, the way you feel the room change from a single breath, the way you detect hidden motives wrapped in smiles. It has left people disoriented. Lately, they've been orchestrating strange little moments, subtle emotional traps, just to measure how much of their inner world you can read without being told. And when you meet them there, with an answer they never gave, with awareness they never invited, they freeze. Because now, it's no longer something they can brush off. It's something they're documenting silently, hoping to understand before it undoes the safety of their certainty. There's something happening beneath the surface that's so intense, so charged, it's making people question their own mental privacy. Whatever has shifted, it's hitting their emotional landscape with the force of something they can't name, yet can't escape. Now, there's this rising fear, an inner whisper that you might be able to detect what they don't dare say out loud. Cravings, memories, obsessions. They're trying to hide these impulses even from themselves, but when you're near, the illusion of secrecy collapses. It's not just discomfort. It's the terrifying idea that nothing inside them stays hidden anymore, not even the things they never gave voice to. You are here for a reason. If you feel the call, answer it. Click join to unlock exclusive content, deep insights, and a powerful community. This isn't just a membership, it's an awakening. Step into your divine purpose. Join the chosen. All around, small games are unfolding, strange little moments where people act normal but set up invisible traps. One might test you by locking onto a thought, waiting to see if you'll respond without prompt. And then somehow, you align perfectly with what they were silently projecting. Your glance, your pause, your breath, it matches the signal they never thought could be intercepted. Their face says everything: confusion, fear, awe. Or maybe there's this tension in the atmosphere, something sharp and unsettling, as if someone is throwing energetic darts your way. You shift, breathe differently, raise an eyebrow, maybe even smile faintly. And someone across the space tightens, stunned that their private experiment has just been exposed. That's the level you're on now, and no one quite knows what to make of it. It's not just isolated curiosity anymore, something deeper is circulating. Whispers have begun to form, networks. People are exchanging subtle stories, recounting strange experiences, quietly connecting dots they can't explain. The talk isn't malicious, it's speculative, fascinated. They're speaking of someone who seems to operate just outside the rules they understand, someone whose insight stretches beyond what should be possible. Now their curiosity is turning practical. They don't want to just wonder, They want results, so they start crafting controlled moments, observing your presence like it's part of an informal study they didn't ask your permission for. And now, those experiments aren't random. They're becoming coordinated. Conversations are happening behind closed doors, shared recollections, aligned theories, quiet plans. In certain places where people gather, maybe out of routine, maybe out of boredom, a collective decision gets made. Let's focus on that person. Let's think the same thought. Let's tune in all at once. Not out of cruelty, but from a hunger to confirm the impossible. When that concentrated gaze hits, it's unmistakable. It doesn't feel like coincidence. It feels like a weight, an invisible pressure that creeps into the room without sound. That internal shift you felt, the sudden dissonance, the inexplicable tightness in the air, the strange sense that every wall had eyes on the other side, that was real. They were watching, just not in the way anyone would admit out loud. Nothing about this impact has come from effort. It's the absence of effort that's setting everything on fire. While others are strategizing how to be seen, how to be believed, how to be validated, you've simply been present. Quietly existing in your natural frequency, unbothered, unpolished, and yet impossible to overlook. There's no announcement, no explanation, no campaign to prove anything. And that's exactly what unravels people, because the presence alone speaks louder than any performance ever could. It reveals without demanding, confirms without persuading, and unsettles the very ground people thought was solid. What unnerves them isn't a claim, but a contradiction, a silent rebellion against the limits of their understanding. You're not out to dismantle anyone's worldview, but your existence does it anyway, without preaching, without pointing fingers, without needing agreement. Your essence flickers like a signal they don't know how to decode, and that signal messes with their comfort. It cracks open assumptions. It chips away at every belief that told them reality was a sealed container. They're not threatened by your words. They're haunted by what you embody. And deeper still, something ancient is being reactivated in the presence of your energy. This isn't about entertainment or spectacle. This is ignition. You're lighting dormant wires inside people they didn't know were there. It doesn't look dramatic, but something inside them stirs. Questions start forming where certainty once stood. And in that moment, they start feeling the pull of something bigger than logic, something their own spirit remembers, but their mind forgot. That's not a trick. That's awakening. That's what you've been doing all along, showing people what they've always been, just by being what you are. Something about your presence raises questions that most people have spent years avoiding. No lecture, no demand, just an unspoken invitation that echoes beneath the surface. Is this all there is for you? Or is there something deeper your spirit's been silently reaching for? Without uttering a sound, you challenge the silence in others, not the external one, the silence inside them, the one they've decorated with distractions. You stir up what they've buried beneath routine, the ache for something that stirs the soul, not just fills the schedule. And suddenly, they're not sure if what they've been calling life was really living at all. This goes far beyond perception. It's not just about reading people, it's about awakening them. You don't just sense reality, you bend it. You disrupt static patterns and replace them with motion. Something about what you carry sparks a remembering in others, like they've brushed against a piece of something sacred and didn't know how much they missed it until it showed up right in front of them. You're not offering tricks, you're opening doors. And when those doors swing open, They start to see their own reflection in dimensions they didn't even know they belonged to. Imagine someone believing they've tasted sweetness their whole life, only to one day discover flavor for the first time. That's the effect your essence has. It recalibrates their definition of meaning. Everything they used to call joy now feels artificial. What once looked like depth now feels paper-thin. They thought they were awake until your energy walked in like a sunrise through a closed curtain. And now they can't go back. Now they're left with the realization that something real has touched them, and everything else feels like dust in comparison. That's not performance. That's disruption. That's the kind of transformation that doesn't ask for permission and doesn't wait to be understood. You didn't stumble here by accident. You were led. If something in your spirit is stirring, don't ignore it. Tap Join to access exclusive content, prophetic insights, and a community of purpose-driven souls. This isn't just a membership. It's your moment of alignment. Step into who you were born to be. Welcome to the chosen. There's a reason why certain people can't seem to hold it together around you. Something inside them is breaking open, not in a destructive way, but in the way a wall crumbles when the light behind it finally pushes through. What they're experiencing isn't confusion, it's awakening. And awakenings don't come gently. They unravel what was familiar. They burn through the habits that once dulled the spirit. What once felt satisfying suddenly becomes unbearable. The artificial falls flat. The distractions go numb. And all because your presence quietly asks their soul to get back up after years of being silenced. You're carrying something few can name, but everyone feels. It's not a force that can be measured. It's not loud or flashy. It's woven into your energy, a rhythm that syncs with deeper patterns, the ones that stretch across timelines. You don't chase alignment, it recognizes you. And for those watching, it's like witnessing something rare and undeniable, like encountering a phenomenon the world has no explanation for, but can't look away from. You're not simply existing within the world. You're a gateway to something far beyond it, not in metaphor, but in frequency, a mirror that reflects back what people have forgotten about themselves. You're the unexplained moment that gives a person chills. The atmosphere shifts when you're near, as if time slows just enough to listen. Even those who don't believe in anything outside the tangible start to feel the unexplainable stir in their chest. You become the interruption in their loop, the evidence that something more is possible. What you bring is not just seen, it's felt in ways that language can't capture. And once it's felt, the world around them never looks quite the same again. Something is escalating beneath the surface, and it's not random. People are growing more restless, more obsessive in the way they engage with your presence. They're not just curious anymore, they're chasing certainty. They're caught between wonder and denial, trying to decode whether what they're sensing is fantasy or revelation. So they invent little rituals, unspoken challenges, energetic tests, anything to anchor this mystery into something they can explain. But what's unraveling them isn't what you say or do. It's that your very being continues to deliver evidence that what they thought was impossible is standing in front of them, breathing. If your heart overflows with God's blessings, let that love shine. Click the super thank you button and give $20 or more to plant seeds of faith that will impact countless lives. Your generosity reflects His abundance. Be a vessel of His grace and watch His kingdom flourish through you. Signals have started flooding the environment, as if the very fabric of reality is echoing the shift. You've noticed, haven't you? Patterns repeating, symbols that show up at exactly the right moment, numbers that whisper in perfect rhythm with your thoughts. They aren't coincidences, they're alignments, responses from the larger field acknowledging your impact. These patterns aren't just for you, they're reflections of what others are beginning to see through you. The world around you is acting as a feedback loop. Every time someone tries to dismiss what they felt in your presence, life sends them a reminder, a sign, a flash of precision, too exact to ignore. Even deeper, something strange is happening to the way people perceive themselves after engaging with you. Their inner world begins to echo back what they've projected, and the mirror doesn't lie. You're not just reflecting thoughts, they're seeing themselves in you, raw and unfiltered. And that reflection, it's accurate, it's undeniable. You've become a trigger for clarity, and in the face of that clarity, the masks they've worn begin to slip. That's why they're shaken. That's why they keep coming back for confirmation. Because deep down, they know something sacred is unfolding through you, and reality is starting to prove it. Some aren't adjusting well to what's been set in motion. Their minds are scrambling to make sense of sensations they've never had words for, caught in the space between disbelief and undeniable feeling. Instead of surrendering, they're trying to outthink the transformation, overanalyzing every detail, wrestling with doubts that whisper, "What if none of this is real? What if I misread everything? What if I speak up and make a fool of myself?" Fear of humiliation grips tighter than curiosity, and the need to be taken seriously overrides the pull of what's quietly changing them. Their inner world is shifting fast, but their outer identity can't keep up with the speed of truth rising in them. The discomfort isn't just emotional, it's spiritual. Something within them is insisting on a new way forward, while the ego scrambles to rewind the clock. Old comforts no longer soothe. Familiar routines fall flat. What used to be enough suddenly leaves them hollow. And yet, instead of moving with the shift, some are still clinging to worn-out patterns like debris in a rising tide. They're holding tight to a self that no longer fits, because letting go feels like stepping off a cliff with no ground in sight. What's happening now is a clash between inner instruction and external conditioning. The deeper self is whispering, "Go this way, it will nourish you, it will free you." But the surface self screams back, "I want what I've always chased. I want what feels predictable and safe." The war between expansion and familiarity is igniting storms inside them. It's not confusion, it's awakening. And awakening is disruptive. It doesn't allow you to settle. It doesn't let you pretend you're still satisfied by fragments when your soul is demanding the whole. So now, many are discovering this painful truth. They're being locked out of what no longer aligns, not as punishment, but as redirection toward what was always meant for them. Some people are acting out not because they want answers, but because they're trying to regain a sense of control in a situation that feels completely foreign. They don't understand how you do what you do, and that uncertainty makes them uneasy. So instead of sitting with the discomfort, they create small tests, little moments meant to corner the unknown into something predictable. It's not always malicious, it's survival. If they can convince themselves there's a logical flaw in what you're showing them, they don't have to rewrite the entire blueprint of their reality. They're trying to contain the unfamiliar by turning you into something explainable. If you've been touched by God's goodness, don't keep it to yourself. Click Super Thank You and sow a gift of $20 or more to help spread His light. Your giving becomes a ripple of grace, blessing hearts and building His kingdom. Let His overflow pour through you. But the more they attempt to disprove you, the more the opposite unfolds. Their quiet trials, the thoughts they send, the reactions they watch for, keep returning outcomes that defy their expectations. It's not the result they wanted, it's the one they feared. Because each time you meet them in that hidden space with precision, they're faced with a reality that slips past their defenses. They wanted to call it chance. They needed to call it coincidence. But the consistency makes that impossible. And now, they're torn. Part of them still trying to pull the curtain shut, while another part aches for the curtain never to have been there at all. This contradiction builds a tension they can't name. They're stuck between denial and hope, between skepticism and awe. A part of them is still whispering, "Please let this be real," while the rest clings to everything they've been taught to believe about what's possible. And that's the real conflict. It's not about you. It's about what your existence forces them to see. You're not shattering their world. You're waking it up. And waking up, especially when the dream felt safe, is always a complicated process. Some echoes from earlier seasons of life are starting to stir again, not to reclaim you, but to test how far you've truly come. Old dynamics are resurfacing, not as a punishment, but as a reflection of what you've outgrown. Certain people from the past, those who once thrived in chaos and distraction, are feeling the distance you've created. These are the ones who fed off appearance, who lived for instant gratification, who built their identities around control rather than connection. But the version of you they once knew no longer exists. You're no longer drawn to the hollow performances that once passed for intimacy. Something inside you has changed course entirely. The path you're on now doesn't make space for shallow exchanges. There's no more room for masked charm or glittering silence. The presence you seek can't be found in surface interactions. It needs to echo. It needs to resonate. You're no longer interested in blending into spaces that drain you or pretending to care about conversations that lack soul. You've shifted from craving chemistry to requiring alignment, from flirting with potential to demanding truth. That old version of connection, the one based on aesthetics and games, has lost its hold on you. The longing now is different. It's not rooted in validation or image. It's born of soul recognition. You're seeking conversations that stir memory in the spirit, eyes that see through layers, presence that feels like home. The frequency you're vibrating on no longer matches those old environments, and even if you tried, you couldn't shrink yourself back down into them. That's why the disconnection is happening. That's why certain energies can't find you anymore. You've changed your spiritual address. And those trying to reach the old version of you, they're realizing that door has been permanently closed. There's a visible shift unfolding around you, and it's throwing people off. They're watching you decline what the world considers gold, witnessing you walk away from things they'd chase without hesitation. From the outside, it might look like you've become distant, hard to impress, unwilling to compromise. But that's not it. You've simply recalibrated your internal compass. You've touched something real, an experience so rich, so unfiltered, so spiritually alive that anything lacking soul now rings hollow. Imitations no longer tempt you, and that quiet refusal to settle is confusing to those who still define value by surface standards. You're being held in ways you might not even notice. The unseen realm is thick with presence right now, an invisible net catching you through every moment of uncertainty. You haven't been navigating this alone, even in the moments where silence made you doubt it. That heaviness you feel some nights, that's not abandonment. It's a sacred pause a reminder that guidance doesn't always speak loud. It often whispers, and when your light flickers with doubt, they lean in closer. Not to fix you, but to remind you that nothing is broken. There's also a subtle shame some of you have been carrying, this quiet fear that your essence might be too much, that your knowing unsettles people, that your joy makes others uncomfortable, that your brilliance needs to be dimmed for others to stay. But that shame, it's not yours. Your energy was never meant to be small. It was meant to ripple. And the unseen forces around you celebrate your uniqueness like a chorus, humming in harmony with your breath. They're not annoyed by your sensitivity, they're moved by it. They're not tired of your questions. They're responding through every sign, every moment of serendipity. And when you let yourself laugh, sway, move freely through space, like music moving through light, they dance with you. Because that's when you're closest to the truth of who you really are. There's an effervescent current moving through your field right now, something mischievous, light, almost teasing in the best way. And it's not an accident. That spark of playfulness isn't a distraction from your spiritual journey, it's an essential part of it. You weren't sent here to carry the weight of the world with furrowed brows and solemn rituals. You came to remind the world that magic can laugh, that wonder can dance, that divine energy has a sense of humor too. That cheeky, untamed side of your spirit? It's not a flaw, it's part of your medicine. What's unfolding around you is bigger than you'll ever fully see. The shifts that are happening in people's inner worlds, those aren't random. They're ripple effects from simply being in your orbit. You're not preaching, you're not forcing, you're just being. And that being is powerful enough to realign someone's entire soul path. Your presence calls people back to something ancient, something they can't name but instinctively remember. That's why so many are acting strange around you. It's not confusion. It's awakening disguised as discomfort. You were never meant to explain yourself to skeptics. You're not here to audition for belief. Your essence does the work without the performance. The ones who are meant to see you already feel the shift when you walk into a room. They might not know why they're thinking differently, why their heart feels restless, why their mind keeps returning to something you said or didn't say, but the frequency you carry is planting seeds, and those seeds are growing roots fast. Even the subtle challenges, the side glances, the silent tests, are just confirmation that your energy is undeniable. People are documenting their own transformation without even realizing it. Every time they try to make sense of you, they end up uncovering pieces of themselves. And that's the real alchemy. You're not just opening doors, they're discovering they had keys the whole time. You're reminding them of what their own spirit was capable of before the noise of the world convinced them otherwise. And you're doing it all while radiating a joy that refuses to be tamed. What's unfolding through you isn't just personal, it's collective. You're not merely existing, you're acting as a signal, waking dormant frequencies in people who forgot they could feel more. Every glance, every pause, every unspoken knowing is reintroducing them to something ancient within themselves. You're holding up a mirror to the human spirit, not to impress, but to remind. The curiosity you're receiving, the questions you haven't even been asked aloud yet, they're all part of this transition. People aren't just observing you, they're being stirred awake by you, pulled towards something they didn't know they were missing. Eventually, the doubt softens, the testing slows. What began as quiet skepticism becomes genuine wonder. They start leaning in, not to challenge, but to understand. And in ways you didn't plan for, you begin guiding, not from a pedestal, but through presence. People will seek you out. Ask how you see what others can't. Feel what others miss. They'll want to know how you navigate the invisible currents they're only just beginning to sense. Without effort, you'll find yourself translating the intangible, bridging the gap between what's known and what's possible. All of this connects to something much bigger than one lifetime. You didn't arrive here to blend in or entertain. You came to rewire something, to move consciousness forward, to shift timelines. The ones who challenge you today will become the very voices that speak your truth aloud tomorrow. Not because they were forced to believe, but because they couldn't deny what they experienced through you. And as those ripples move outward, communities form, spaces where depth is celebrated, where evolution is normal, where soul speaks freely.